Hello, everybody. This is Sophia Mona Lisa from the Golden Ray Center and the Roseville Mystery School. And so I wanted to do a quick, well, it won't be that quick. I wanted to do a video today. It's January 6th, 2023, on the second anniversary of what has become known as the January 6th event. I won't use the other words that are used to describe this event because, quite frankly, I simply don't buy into that propaganda. But I think it's worth looking at the chart to see what happened on the day, what was going on in the sky that influenced the events of that day, and then what's in the sky today. Around that, what we call a solar return. It's the birthday or the anniversary of that event. So here we go. What is fascinating to me about the second anniversary of this January 6th event is that it has a lot of similarities to our midterm election day and the events of that midterm election. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it in the description below. But on the midterm election, just like today, we have three converging events. Of course, we've got the second anniversary of the January 6th event. At the midterm elections, we had an eclipse. And of course, eclipses involve the moon. Today, we have the full moon in Cancer at 16 degrees of Cancer. And what's fascinating is that eclipse was at 16 degrees as well. 16 degrees of, let me put on my glasses because I wrote some notes down. The eclipse was at 16 degrees of Taurus. That's what I thought. I just didn't want to misspeak. The other thing that we have going on is that tomorrow we've got the Mercury Inferior Conjunction. I'll go a little bit more into that a little bit later on. It's at 17 degrees of Capricorn. That's 1 degree off that 16 degrees. And of course, it's across the sky from where the full moon in Cancer is today. You know, you've got a full moon. The moon is on one side of the sky. The sun is on the other. So on the other side of the sky where the sun is, that's creating that full moon, Mercury is standing there in the sky with the sun. Mercury is retrograde now, so that's why it's called an inferior conjunction. Mercury and the sun are meeting together in the underworld. And so that will be exact tomorrow on January 7th. But what's so fascinating about the Mercury inferior conjunction is that its most potent days is a three-day window. Today, which is the day before, January 6th, tomorrow when it's exact January 7th, and then the following day, January 8th, which happens to be my 60th birthday. And let me just give a shout out to my birthday buddies, Elvis and David Bowie. And so my solar return chart will actually have that Mercury inferior conjunction encoded into my whole new evolutionary path for next year. So these three things are happening. And at the midterm election, we also had a Mercury Sun conjunction occurring in the sky, but it was a superior conjunction happening at that 16 degrees of Scorpio. So 16 is coming up, this whole moon stuff and eclipse stuff coming up again, and the Mercury superior conjunction, and now the Mercury inferior conjunction. And of course, that Mercury superior conjunction that happened at the midterms was the first event of this current Mercury synodic cycle. Tomorrow's Mercury inferior conjunction is the third of the 4 events of this Mercury synodic cycle. So it's very synchronistic that these 2 events both have 3 converging events, and that they are very similar in nature. And because this 16 degrees has shown up not only in our full moon in Cancer today, but in the eclipse, the total lunar eclipse, and the Mercury superior conjunction that we had at the midterm, I wanted to take a quick moment and look at the number 16. I'm not an expert by any means in numerology, but I thought it would be fascinating to take a look at what this number 16, which when you add them together becomes a 7, is all about. So the number 16 is associated with qualities of independence, leadership, and service to others. It is a symbol of spiritual purity, and it is related to the Tower card in the Tarot, which has to do with change, transformation, and upheaval. And what's really spectacular is that all of these qualities and even the effect of the Tower card is built into the chart of this January 6th event, not only on the day of the event, but also with today's 2nd anniversary. So I think that if you keep those keywords in the back of your mind related to this event, that it'll be very meaningful for you as we discuss it further. So this is the natal chart, what we call the day of the January 6th event. And you know, you have to come up with a time, and the time that I'm using is a time that I found online that was documented as a time when allegedly the insurgents into the Capitol building took place. And that time that I found that is documented began at 1:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's the time that I'm using. And it's interesting how this chart has come out with that time. So the first thing that we see that I want to talk about is that we have an astrological aspect in the sky on that day. We've got the Capricorn Cancer axis involved. We've got the Aries Libra involved. So let me just talk to you a little bit about what a Grand Cross is all about. So first of all, I just want to show you here that the Grand Cross as an astrological aspect mirrors 2 other symbols that we know. This is the glyph for the earth, and you can see that cross there. And of course, this is a medicine wheel, and you also see the cross there. Now, because of the fact that the Grand Cross that was in the sky on that day involved the astrological signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, that is known as a cardinal Grand Cross. And there are 3 different kinds of Grand Crosses, because if you think of there being 12 astrological signs, 4 signs being involved in a Grand Cross, you divide 12 by 4, you get 3. There's 3 different types of Grand Crosses. The other 2 are the fixed Grand Cross and the mutable Grand Cross. But we're going to focus on the one that's happening in the sky at this event in 2021, which was the Cardinal Grand Cross. And what's fascinating about the fact that this Cardinal Grand Cross showed up on the day that this event took place is that Cardinal Grand Crosses initiate and begin new things. And you could say, from one particular perspective, that event certainly initiated a whole new chapter in the unfolding of the American story, just to kind of keep it polite. So that's fascinating. So let's look at the luminary bodies here. that we have involved. Notice there's Pluto. And what did I say about Pluto? It represents the soul mission of an individual or a particular event. And on either side of Pluto, we've got the sun that is fueling this event. And we've got Mercury. And of course, we know from the event that the communication that was happening on the ground and the communication that's happened since then in terms of making allegations about what prompted this event are very much tied up like I would say like a ball of yarn that's gotten all knotted up together. And so this is why we see Mercury standing right next to Pluto within 3 degrees. So here in Capricorn, and then across the sky, we have Epona, and I'll speak to that in a minute. Then down here in Libra, we've got the moon, which represents the great mother, the divine mother, and Magdalene, your embodiment of Sophia consciousness. Both of those in the sign of Libra, which is conscious equal partnership, standing across the sky from Mars, the sacred masculine in Aries, the sign that he rules. And look at this, 29 degrees, 56 minutes. 4 more minutes, he would have been at 0 degrees Taurus. So I've always said any luminary body that's at 29 degrees of any sign is a mastery sign. And of course, depending on what's happening here, Mars in Aries is what I called a scaffolding effect, because Mars is the ruler of Aries. In the shadow, it can be extremely aggressive, as we saw on that day. So I'll come back and talk to this a little bit more. But first, I want to speak to you about the Celtic goddess Epona. Now, each year I start to work with different luminary bodies. And this year I've dropped off from my chart working with Merlin, the alchemical transformation, and Arthur, the wise and compassionate leader. And I know there's a couple others that I'm letting go of. And I'm looking more at the Celtic goddess Epona. And also I'm looking at Maria, but she's not showing up in these aspects, as in Mother Mary. So let's talk about the Celtic goddess Epona. She is very much the way that I'm feeling into her energies and translating her. She's very much related to this wisdom card here, which is a wisdom card from my deck known as the Way of the Horse, that was created by Linda Kohanov. And this is the Lion Heart card. And so the Lion Heart card is all about how humans carry the wisdom of both predator and prey, and that true empowerment for humans is dependent on finding a way to balance within them that predator and prey consciousness. So when we look at that and we think about, okay, what are some of the themes then of that idea, we are told by Linda Kohanov, who created the deck, that it has to do with assertiveness without aggression. What did I just say about Mars and Aries? In the shadow, especially with that, scaffolding effect, you can get a lot of aggression. So assertiveness without aggression is really kind of a novel idea, because most people, especially if you're a woman, being assertive, they automatically get triggered into thinking that, feeling like you're being aggressive. And assertiveness doesn't necessarily equate to aggressiveness. And so it's interesting that the Lion of Heart card is about being able to be assertive without being aggressive. Some people don't know how to assert themselves without being aggressive. There they fall into that shadow piece again. But this is definitely about being assertive without aggression. The other piece that Linda shares with us around this idea of being able to empower ourselves by balancing the wisdom of the predator and the prey within us is the courage to feel, and the willingness to act. And so I love that, because you'll see here on the chart, Epona in this Grand Cross is in the sign of Cancer at the time of this event. And so the courage to feel is really, really important. And then the willingness to act. Well, Mars at 29 degrees Aries is that willingness to act. And so, with this Grand Cross initiating something new, you've got 4 squares here, 4 90-degree angles, all kinds of opportunities for breaking through into new consciousness being presented to you. And so that very much this Lion Heart medicine is being offered to us in this chart through the goddess Epona, and in her square position to Mars, the sacred masculine, at that mastery point of 29 degrees of Aries. So let's look at, I thought I had something else I wanted to share. Okay, I guess I'm going ahead and I'm going into the solar return chart then for this event. And what we see in this solar return chart is that this axis, the Cancer Capricorn axis of the Grand Cross that was in the natal chart of the day of the event, is being activated again. And this goes back to those other 2 events that I mentioned previously on my second slide. The fact that the moon is at a full moon today, and that it's standing right across the sky from where that Mercury Inferior Conjunction is going to be exact tomorrow. And so, with a solar return, an anniversary chart, the sun is always right back in the same place in the sky as it was when the event took place. So 16 degrees, 41 minutes of Capricorn for the sun here, 16 degrees, 41 minutes Capricorn of the sun here. So the fact that this Mercury in conjunction is happening at 17 degrees, probably less than a minute away from where the sun is in this chart, I believe is highly, highly significant. And so let's talk about that a little bit. That Cancer Capricorn axis, where this event that is being activated, that one axis of the Grand Cross that's being activated, that axis is all about family, home, and community. And the way that I am translating that for this second anniversary is in relationship to family, home, and community, and our nation. We have identified ourselves as the land of the free, the home of the brave. And with that Mercury Inconjunct happening in the sky, what happens is that, I think I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so let me just move down I am getting ahead of myself. Okay, I'll come back to that. But basically what I want to say about this is that this event is giving us an opportunity, because of the Mercury Inconjunct being a part of it, to rebuild this nation as the land of the free and the home of the brave. So I'll go into that a little bit more, a couple slides down. All right, so now we just talked about this Cancer Capricorn axis, but what I want to show you is that this point where the Mercury Inferior Conjunction is going to be exact tomorrow is one leg of what we call a grand Earth trine. And in this grand Earth trine over here in Taurus, we've got the North Node, meaning that what's going to be happening through this anniversary is very much a part of that rebuilding of the home of the land and the land of the free and the home of the brave, because of the fact that the North Node has to do with our evolutionary GPS. And with it being activated this way on this anniversary, very closely conjunct Uranus retrograde, that means that from within the American people, where there's going to be this rising up of liberating ourselves as citizens to rebuild this nation as the land of the free and the home of the brave. That is a part of this Cancer Capricorn activation. Now, what I do want to also point out is where the moon is here, it is actually activating where Epona was on this axis at that original event in 2021 through that Grand Cross. And so even that lion heart energy of balancing predator and prey, because it has felt like we've very much been in this predator prey consciousness within our nation. It's going to be facilitated by the Great Mother at this solar return to help bring that balance in between the predator and the prey, which is going to be a very significant part of people being able to feel that liberating spirit, that kind of breakthrough spirit of being able to, at this destined time, because of this North Node, to rebuild our nation as the land of the free and the home of the brave. Now, on the other side of this grand trine in Virgo, we've got Isis retrograde. That's the cosmic Sophia there's that number again, 16 Virgo, 16 here, 16 up at the sun. So remember what I said about those key words that I mentioned to you on that previous slide. I think I said independence, courage. Bear with me. I'm going to flip back to the slide so we can see it. Independence, leadership, and service to others. Change, transformation, upheaval. Now, this change, transformation, upheaval is typically associated with Pluto, which was, remember, in the natal chart right there between the sun and Mercury. But I would say that it's also related to this placement of Uranus next to the North Node. So I find that fascinating, that number 16, that connecting this event with the midterm event in some very unique ways in terms of what was happening in the sky, is infusing those energies from those qualities into this opportunity for us to rebuild our nation as the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so let's look at what's going on here, down here in Virgo. So Isis, as the cosmic Sophia, divine wisdom, is activating where Lucifer, which is separation consciousness, in the chart at that time. I mean, think about how much separation was created, not only within the citizenry, but in the consciousness of the citizenry from this event. And so Isis, through her divine wisdom, is coming in, and she is taking that separation consciousness and she's bringing it back into unity consciousness to facilitate this spirit of being able to feel inspired and hold this vision of how we can once again become the land of the free and the home of the brave. So let's talk a little bit about this grand Earth trine and what the effect of that grand Earth trine is providing for this full moon opposition to the Mercury Inferior Conjunction. Oh, I didn't go down one side. Okay, there we go. So a grand Earth trine is very much like a three-legged stool. If you kick one of the legs out of from underneath the stool topples over. So the effect of any kind of a grand trine, and there's 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. So any kind of a grand trine is going to have a stabilizing effect that is related to the element in which the grand trine is taking place. And as I said, this is a grand Earth trine. And the element of Earth teaches us how to embody wholeness. Notice that Uranus North Node was in the sign of Taurus, which is all about embodiment, and how to heal any internal separation. Well, where is the cosmic Sophia? She's right here, standing next to Lucifer in the natal chart, providing that earth element to heal that internal separation, that separation consciousness that was really exacerbated through that initial event in 2021. And so now we want to again speak to that grand Earth trine in terms of this Mercury Inferior Conjunction. And as I said, it's an inferior conjunction because Mercury is retrograde now. So whenever Mercury is retrograde, you want to consciously engage all of your RE words. So this is definitely the time for Americans and America as a nation to rethink, reconsider, and redefine how we are desiring to show up in the world. And so that very much lends to the idea of that Cancer Capricorn axis of being able to rebuild that RE, taking into account the Mercury Inferior Conjunction energies to rebuild this land of the free and home of the brave. So there we go. There's the North Node and Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And look at how it's in the solar 7th house. That means that a whole brand new relationship between ourselves and our nation and the rest of the world, ourselves with the other citizens of our country is being envisioned and being brought into a reality that we can all embrace and embody. Notice how this inferior conjunction is happening in the solar third house, the solar third house ruled by Mercury, how it is that you communicate with your local community. And so they've always said, everything needs to happen at the grassroots level. And so, your local community, your counties, your states, this is very much a part of transforming the way that they communicate with each other. That Mercury inferior conjunction is the most alchemical, most transformative period of the entire Mercury synodic cycle. And as I said, its window of potency is 3 days. The day before, which is today, the second anniversary, tomorrow, which is the exact event, and then the next day, which is my 60th birthday. Okay, and then down here, where Lucifer and Virgo are, they are in, you can't see it here, but it's definitely the solar 11th house. And what I love about that is that it's taking us into that collective consciousness. And while generally it's speaking about the global collective consciousness, I really do believe in this instance, because it's including this 7th house here and the 3rd house here, that it's talking about us, the collective consciousness of us as a nation, but also then how the rest of the world perceives us as a nation, and how that's going to be completely transformed by the alchemy of this Mercury inferior conjunction. Now, what's interesting in terms of this opposition is that the moon and Epona, well, the moon is here in the solar 9th house. And so the Divine Mother is coming in to help teach us, those that are requiring this teaching, how to find that balance of the predator-prey wisdom within them, how to shift into that lion heart frequency. And then, for those of us that are already feeling like we have that balance, she's just, continuing to nurture that frequency within us. So I think that while on the surface, the event was obviously very combustible and divisive, I think that you can see, Pluto in Capricorn, I've been saying, is all about reclaiming sovereignty. And so the fact that that happened on the day was really, you could say, an initiating, right? Because of the Grand Cross, an initiating event that would propel the American citizens and America as a nation to be able to reclaim our sovereignty. So while it looked messy on the surface, I would say, that in terms of how it is serving our expansion as a nation, that it's really coming around full circle, especially because of this North Node involved in this grand Earth trine, in terms of helping us to affect what the intention was in terms of being able to reclaim our sovereignty. Now, what's interesting is in that natal chart, Mercury is in Gemini ruled by Mercury. So it has a lot to do with communication, how we communicate with each other. And when we get into that place of being able to hold this frequency of the lion heart, where we can have the courage to feel how we feel about all of this, and be willing to take action that is assertive without aggression. That this is going to be an unfolding over the next year, between now and next January, that I think that we're going to see show up in our external landscape, in our nation, over this next year. So I'm personally very excited about that. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times that Sunday is my 60th birthday. And so on Facebook, I'm doing a birthday fundraiser, and it's for the Heartland Haven Foundation. There's a herd of about 6 horses out there that I've been working with for over a year now. My 1-year anniversary with them was in September, and this is my horse, Millie, that I sponsor. She's not mine. She's mine in my heart. I don't own her, but she's my girl. I sponsor her. And this is Lincoln. And so if you would like to contribute to my Facebook fundraiser, I greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to put this link in the description box below. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know that I'm not looking exactly glamorous tonight, but that's because I had a big day at the ranch today, and I wanted to get this presentation out today on the day. So I didn't have time to, get freshened up and dolled up for you. But nevertheless, I invite you to like this video. This is my YouTube channel, the Roseville Mystery School. I invite you to subscribe and share it. And if you have any questions about any of the other kinds of work that I do solar return readings, I do DNA activation readings, light code activation readings, soul mission readings. You can shoot me an email, sophiamonalisa79@gmail.com. Just remember that Sophia has an F in it. And I would be really happy to hear from you. And so thank you again for taking the time to watch this broadcast. And I look forward to seeing you at my next video. Bye-bye.